Anna Lapwood is one of the most exciting and honest performers in classical music today, an organist, a conductor, and a broadcaster. Her new album, Fire Dove, comes out May 30th, and it's a really intriguing mix of music from Vierne and Duraflé through Robbie Williams and Hans Zimmer. I had a chance to sit down with Anna over Zoom to talk with her about this very personal project, the decision to devote herself solely to her organ career, and what it's like to move forward, to make a life in music and follow your dreams. I wanted to thank you for giving me a little advanced hearing of the album. It's
Did you
brilliant.
like it?
I
Yay!
love it. I love
Oh,
it. And I love how you've combined all kinds of everything, really. And I was,
isn't it funny? It doesn't it, isn't it? Sorry, I've interrupted
no,
you already.
no,
That's a good
please already do. Go.
But isn't it funny how, like, on paper you look at it and you're like, what? Like Robbie Williams? And then you listen and it's like, that kind of makes sense.
Which is perfect for an organist since you all are brilliant at making things connect that the rest of us wouldn't ever think of doing.
Well, I think we sort of see our instruments as like the tool that can bridge the gap between different genres, different people. And yeah, it was funny actually when I first came up with the track listing. And I sort of showed it to my team at Sony, and they were like, "Really?" And because I think a lot of people can see a track listing like that and be like, "Oh, of course you've been told to do," but really it was me being like, "I want to do these pieces," and yeah, I had to sort of gently explain that I really thought it was going to work, but there was a lot of trust involved from their side because they couldn't hear it until I arrived to record because every organ is so different. But yeah, I think the instrument we recorded on in Norway was very much like the glue that brought the whole thing together.
So that's brilliant because that has two follow-up questions, if that's okay for you. So
Yeah.
one was, I know it was very much your project and not someone else giving you, but did you start with a piece? Did you have a concept? Was it Fire Dove? And great work on the cover art as well. And I love the
Thank you.
title. It's so evocative. There's so many things one could do with that. But how did it start? Was it music? Was it concept? Was it three pieces? How did it start?
It kind of grew out of a concert program that I was working on for about a year. I mean, I was touring this program around, and I love when I'm touring swapping in pieces and tweaking and tweaking and tweaking until I feel like I found the perfect program. And I think that process can take like a year of touring before you really feel like you've hit the program that feels like it is exactly where you want it. And so this album very much grew out of that program, which centered around the bells of Notre Dame and the Duruflé, which are obviously like the start and end of the album. And then from there, it was sort of thinking which pieces do I definitely want in there alongside it, and then what can I do in an album context that I wouldn't necessarily do in a concert context, to play around with genre a little bit more and to have the choir involved. And then in terms of the title, we commissioned Julie Cooper to write a piece, and I didn't know what it was going to be, but I just said to her, I would love it if you could try and capture something of that moment after a firework has exploded and after the noise, when it's like the light is just suspended for a second and then it falls. And she then came back with this piece called Fire Dove. And the moment we saw it and heard it and saw the title, we all went, oh, we've got to call it that.
Amazing.
Um, yeah.
That's wonderful. And I really appreciate hearing how, yeah, that you took the time to come to it as, doing different programs in different places, which was then going to lead me to your question about organs. I am not an organ aficionado at all, an appreciator, but not an aficionado. Do different organs have different personalities? Do they have different, yeah, I mean, I know the space does, certainly the space that
Yeah.
an organ is, but the machine, how
Yeah.
different are they? And do they have a personality? I guess is what I really was curious to know.
They are so different. I mean, I could have recorded this on 10 different organs, and you would think it was a different player, you would think it was a different composer, you would think there are so many differences between instruments. And actually, it's one of the big challenges with doing an organ recording is finding the perfect instrument. And when I say I feel like we struck gold this time around, it's a little bit of a risk because you can have played an instrument before, but you still don't quite know how it will record. Because with the organ, there's a lot of like blower noise and things like that and background noise. It's really hard to capture it. But this instrument, oh my gosh. And the team we had, Jakob and Mike Hatch, they made magic happen in terms of capturing the actual sound of the instrument. But I think, yeah, every instrument does have a very different personality. And I think the reason I love this one so much is it has a warmth all the way across the instrument, but then it also has this kind of depth of fire, I want to say. So when you're really starting to turn the screw with a crescendo, it just seems to have like endless possibilities to add to the crescendo. So just when you think you've hit the emotional heart of where it can go, it pushes you further and further and further.
Brilliant. That's amazing. I mean, I assumed that there were different personalities to the instruments because there's different builders and the wood and the space and all of that. But yeah. And did you have that in mind when you wanted to put the album together? Or were you, as you traveled around, because I know you do a ton of touring as well, were you each place like, maybe this one would be good? Or how did that come?
So I had done a performance in Trondheim a couple of years earlier, and I'd kind of earmarked it straight away because it was such a inspiring organ to play. I mean, you have a very different experience everywhere you go when you have 8 hours maybe to set up a program on that instrument, and it was like a knife through butter. It just felt so easy and so natural and so inspiring, and I think one of the things which shows me how much I love this instrument is when we were recording, we were doing these overnight sessions and we were meant to be going, I think it was 11 at night till 8 in the morning. And we would tend to end a couple of hours early because we'd get everything done. And I would stay and I'd practice and just play and have fun every day for 2 hours until I was kicked out. And I think that for me says a lot about how much I love the instrument. But yeah, so I played this instrument a couple of years earlier, and then I was sort of creating a list of organs I would love to record on. And as we started to get further along the lines in terms of thinking about the repertoire, I kept coming back to Trondheim and thinking this would just be perfect. But is it too ridiculous going to Norway to record? And then the amazing team at Sony made it happen. And it really does feel like we were in an alternative reality for a week. And I look back on that week with such fond memories.
And so then the piece that incorporates the choir, did they come to Norway? I mean, they must have, right? Did they? No, how do we make this work?
No. So we did a separate choir recording session.
Okay.
And so we did Come to Me and Fire Dove. We then sang against the track, and then mixed the two. And the Adele, sorry, Bob Dylan. I keep calling it Adele. It's because I grew up with the Adele version.
Same. Okay.
Yeah, it's bad, isn't it? But with that one, actually, everything there is recorded in the church in the UK. Okay. And it's my organ scholar playing the organ there. Which is again a lovely, like a really moving moment for me. I mean, is my senior organ scholar. She only took up the organ like a year and a half before she came to university, and she's such a star. So giving her moment on the album as well felt really important.
So I did want to talk to you because the way I found you on the internet, I knew of your recordings. We played them on the air at WRTI. So I knew of your work as an organist, but more within the choral director realm. And but what I found really compelling about you and why I really wanted to speak to you was because I saw that Instagram post you made about making the decision to leave and focus just on organ. And so then I did kind of a deep dive. I was paying attention to your career in a different way, if you forgive me. I mean, like I said, I really admired the work that you did as a choral director, and that was how I knew you. But to really pay attention to how you have moved forward in this industry, as a woman, as an individual artist, I would love to hear about how you how you trusted that it was time, because that's a big move.
Oh, so hard. I mean,
yeah.
Honestly, and I don't say this in a glib way at all. It is the hardest decision I've ever made. I mean, honestly, like harder than anything else in my life. And I think it's that thing where you're like, you can be so happy in a job. This is kind of what I said in that Instagram post. You can be so happy and you can love the people you work with. And there is something inside you that still says it's time. And I mean, one of the things I go to therapy every week, and I have an amazing therapist who also does coaching. And she's been very much helping me through this decision. And I've been crying on her a lot, being like, maybe it's a mistake. But I think I've been living two lives for several years now. I've been not really sleeping much. I've been basically working two full-time jobs. And I know I've got away with it up till now. And I know I've just about managed to do both. But I can start to feel that my body will not do it forever. But also it doesn't do justice to either of them if you're constantly running between the two, because you don't have the time for deep thought, you don't have the time for chance encounters, you don't have the time for the lovely coincidences in music that lead to those collaborations, which are so much fun. And I think with my students, they are singing so well now, like they are so brilliant, and they deserve someone who is there and it's their entire thing, and they will pour their entire being into it for however many years. They need that now. And it was a difficult decision to come to, but I'd been thinking about it for a couple of years. And yeah, I knew if I didn't do it now, I would probably never do it. And yeah, I'm excited. I'm still emotional about it, but I'm very excited.
Yeah, and I appreciate you talking about that
No, it's
in a
important, I
real
think.
way. Yeah, I do think so. I think it is, and I particularly appreciate how you're identifying trying to do both as full-time jobs, because they are. And I think
Yeah,
we do that, don't we? We get into that space where it feels like, oh, this is here, and you don't want to
yeah,
lose that opportunity and that chance to make the music with the students or make the music as
yeah.
an organist and travel and do all of those.
But also, I think someone said to me, I was at a sort of industry thing, and someone came up to me and was like, "Well, clearly this is a wrong decision. What are you doing? All this," and
Oh.
it was quite a good moment for me to have to kind of vocalize why I'd made the choice and defend it, which was annoying in itself. But anyway, and I just said, you know what? I'm 29. If I am in my final job at the age of 29, then something is wrong, because I could stay in that job forever. It's so comfortable, it's so amazing, it's so fulfilling in many ways. I could literally stay in that job until I retire. But I think there would always be a part of me that would be going, oh, what if I'd done the touring? What if I'd tried that organ thing? And I know that the touring lifestyle, I mean, the next 2 years I'm on the road basically. I know that's not something I'm going to want to do for my entire life, but I know I want to do it now.
It's great. And which leads me to this next point, which is how you are getting people's attention and getting people to come to these concerts and pay attention to such a wide range of music, which I love.
It's cool.
It's so great. And I think the album really embodies that. But
Yeah.
how did that, I mean, how did you convince people?
I genuinely think, I mean, the examples I always give are, if you look at the pop world, people subscribe to the personality, I guess. And then if you look at Taylor Swift, for example, people are Taylor Swift fans and then will listen to any music that she puts out, whatever genre, whatever kind of fad she goes through in terms of the style of music she sings. They listen to it because they like her. And I think that's actually something we can harness a little bit in the classical world, that we're perhaps sometimes a bit nervous about harnessing because we don't want the personality to get in the way of the music.
Mm.
But actually, I think you can not get in the way, but use talking and trying to show people why you care about that music. You can use that to help bridge gaps. And for me, it's obviously been through social media. And I've just tried to be honest about like why I love making music and why I love playing the music I play. And I always try and make sure in my concert programs I have a bridge between film and maybe Robbie Williams and the classical stuff. I always explain in my programs as I go through I tell stories. I tell stories about like personal connections for me, but also musical connections, and just try and kind of demystify it in as many different ways as possible, in the hope that it might hit home for some people. And one of my favorite things, actually, a lot of people who come to my concerts have never been to an organ concert before. And someone came to, I think, 3 concerts in Germany, and I played the Derufle in all of those concerts. And they said the first time they really didn't get it. They were like, I like film music. I don't quite understand this piece. The second time they were like, maybe. And the third time they loved it. And I just think actually that's the thing. It's about like you being open about the fact people might take a while to fall in love with a piece, or they might not fall in love with it, and that's fine. But it's making sure there are bits on the program for everyone, so even if they don't like that piece, they might like others.
Right. Absolutely. And I was thinking as you were talking about being honest about your intentions and why you've chosen things and that authenticity, and how that is not always how we associate with people in the classical world. Like a lot of times we present, right? Like, here's Bach,
Yeah.
who is brilliant. I'm
Yeah, yeah.
But so contextualizing things and also the mix maybe
Yeah.
is the magic,
But also,
there.
it's whenever people are like, so how do you come up with your programs? And I think they expect there's some like scientific thing behind it for me. But I literally just am like, I like this music. I am going to play this music, and I hope that other people might like it too. And yes, part of that is trying to think, okay, if we put these 2 things next to each other, that's cool. But I love playing. Oh,
Oh,
what was that? How exciting!
That was very exciting.
Balloons filling the screen.
Wow, amazing.
Clearly the Zoom gods approve of
this
method of programming. But I just think it has to be about what makes your heart sing as a performer. And the moment you're doing that, the audience can tell that you truly love what you're doing.
Absolutely, 100%. So when you were deciding, did you decide, let's ask it this way, did you decide when you just put things on Instagram, TikTok, etc., was it a conscious choice right from the beginning? Like, I'm demystifying the organ, I want to open the doors to, or did it become a gradual, how did that all originate?
I think it was quite gradual. I think I grew up with social media. So I had Bebo when I was at school, I
Yeah.
think. And then I used to do quite a lot of Twitter, kind of just for fun as a teenager. And so it was a very natural thing for me. Like I was a harpist before I was an organist, and I used to share quite a lot about just what it was like being a harpist and the realities of that, and what it's like being in an orchestra. And there was no kind of intention behind it other than just I thought it was cool, I thought it was interesting, so I did it.
Yeah.
And it was like a natural way to engage with the world for me. And then, yeah, obviously it has sort of snowballed quite a lot since then. And it definitely didn't start as a trying to demystify the organ, but it became it quite quickly because I recognized how many misconceptions there were about it. And I recognized that actually everyone says, oh, the organ, no one likes the organ. But if you get them up close, everyone loves it. It's like a massive toy shop. There's nothing not to love about it. It's just that it hasn't been introduced in a way that makes them realize what they can love, because so many people have just seen it from a distance and probably seen it at maybe a funeral, or a lot of people say, oh, well, I was dragged along to X, Y, and Z and I had to hear it, so I associate it with that. So it's just trying to reprogram how people see it and think about it. And social media has been, I think, the best way that I've found to do it.
And does it feel when you're sharing things on social media, because I mean, like what we talked about with this decision to, leave Pembroke and focus on a solo career, that was big and personal. And yet you shared that and it seemed very authentic. Like I said, I found it very compelling. That was sort of my window into finding out about your new album. So yeah, does it feel very vulnerable to you? You said you grew up with social media. Can you talk me through that just a little bit?
It does feel vulnerable. I think it also feels important because I mean, for example, I'm very clear about the fact no one ever touches my social media. It's only me who does it. because I think it's so tied up with who I actually am as a person and what I'm trying to say as a person and a musician. And I think part of that is being honest about the fact it's not easy being a human being, right? And I think it's too easy in a way for young people to look at anyone in the public eye and be like, oh my gosh, it's so glamorous, it's so perfect. And it's like, no, it's not. It's hard. And yes, there are amazing bits of it, and it absolutely worth it for the brilliant moments. But it is really difficult. And I think particularly when it comes to career decisions, like when I was trying to make this decision, I felt very alone in making the decision because I don't think I'd really heard about other people going through it. And then as soon as I shared it, I had so many people messaging to say, oh my gosh, thank you, I've just been through this. And I had an email from a colleague I know who works with kind of startups, and he said, I often see that people, when they're about to go through their biggest period of growth, they have a really hard decision to make. And that was a really helpful thing for me. So I think I've seen firsthand how when other people have shared their experiences with me, it's lightened the burden a little bit. And so I try and do that the other way around as well, particularly with a view to making sure that when young musicians go through those moments for the first time, they might think, oh, it's okay. I know this isn't unusual. I know it's fine to get some anxiety before going on stage. I know it doesn't mean that I'm wrong. It doesn't mean that I'm broken. It means I'm human.
Right. Everyone has, well, not it, but people have experienced this as well. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're not alone. That
Yeah.
connection, that seems to be a bit of a through line for you, I would
Yeah.
say, right? In the music, but also in your authenticity online, in your presence there.
Yeah.
That's important. And also with the music. So what a great way to tie it all together in that
Yeah.
way.
And I mean, also the other thing to say is that like when I was recording Fire Dove, I was in the middle of making this decision. And for me, I can hear all of that in the music. And my then partner and I were also in the process of breaking up. So it was like there was a lot of emotion poured into this recording. And it was very cathartic for me in a way. But it was like, yeah, this kind of spreading of wings and this like yeah, a lot of intense emotions that then all went into the music. And I can hear it in there. I don't know if other people can, but I
I
know it's
think
there.
I mean, I think so, honestly, Anna. And as I said to you before, I'm not an organ aficionado, appreciator.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't have necessarily picked up an album of organ music. Although I will say, with the addition of the choir, I was all in, right? So
Yay.
so I started there to hear that, and it was
Yeah.
quite to me, from the tone that you get
Yeah.
out of the choir, which I love. Um, it's a really special, shimmery, forward, honest sound that they
Yeah.
make. And I heard that in the organ playing as well, which is why I asked you about the personalities of the organs, because I'm just
Yeah.
intrigued by how that works. But that's the magic of music.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy, isn't it? A mystery in a way. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I would say if you ever go to Norway, go to this cathedral.
No, it's on the list as a result of your as a result of your cordiality. I hadn't identified that before. Um, I'm so curious how you went from harp to organ. I started off as a
Yeah.
violinist forever, so I could do this, but
Yeah.
this absolutely. So I'm so curious, how was that a challenging physical? I mean, mentally it
Yeah.
makes sense because there's to me it seems like there's a lot of different pieces moving at the same time, but just from a physical standpoint to go from harp to organ, what was that like?
It was bizarre. I mean, so I had done piano before, and
Okay.
I'd gone up to grade 8 on piano and on harp and actually on violin as well.
Wow.
But so music was like very much my natural language. It was more natural than speaking. It was how I engaged with the world. And then I took up the organ as a teenager, and I hated it because I felt like I was suddenly up against a brick wall and I couldn't communicate as naturally as I could on my other instruments. I was stuck with the coordination. And I think there's something about the harp which is very immediate emotionally, like you're wrapped around it when you play, and it feels like you really are one with the instrument. So to compare that with the organ, where I felt like you can't emote as easily. You have to work harder, and it's a different way of emoting because it's all through articulation as opposed to just feeling like it just happens. So yeah, it was definitely not like a fell in love with the organ straight away, that was it. And actually, I would say one of the other biggest decisions I ever made was giving up the harp, because I had before I took up the organ, I decided I was going to be a professional harpist. That was my career path.
Right.
And then I changed my mind, and I still have my harp, and I actually played it 2 days ago for the first time in about 2 years. And it was weird because the muscle memory kicked in and my brain had no idea what was going on, but my feet were just doing this. And but yeah, I think it was tricky. But then I think I also have drawn so much from my harp playing, and particularly playing in orchestras, into my organ playing now. And it's one of the reasons I love playing with orchestras so much as a soloist, because I feel like I'm back as a harpist. Yeah.
You have a
Oh,
concert coming up at Royal Albert. Yes,
yeah, on
this is very
Thursday.
exciting. And you've done a series for Classic FM
Yeah.
on the Royal Albert, and then you're doing a proms concert. So give us a preview of what's happening there.
Yeah. So the concert that's this Thursday, we have a new organ concerto written by Max Richter called Cosmology, which is this journey away from the earth and then back again. And oh my gosh, it is incredible. I'm so excited. Also, the really special thing is that my girl choristers, my young choristers, are actually going to come and sing in the concert as a surprise. So the last movement, after this massive big climax, it drops back and it's just me and the girls, and they just sing this Bach chorale melody. And honestly, every time I've rehearsed it, I've cried. So that's going to be fun. And then
Fabulous.
the Classic FM series was the sort of history of the Royal Albert Hall, and the prom is an overnight prom. So I think we're starting at about 10 in the evening, finishing at 7. And it's me, it's Pembroke Choir, but it's also some incredible other artists. So we have Anastasia Kobakina, cellist, and Hayato Sumina, the pianist, and the Ale House Sessions, who do like these amazing kind of, as if it's like a pub lock-in. So it's going to be slightly crazy. I haven't yet figured out how to stay up all night with that much energy to present everything and play. But I think like I love that space at night. It is magical all the time, but at night there's something different about it. And so it's kind of about bringing people into that world. And yeah, I think it's going to be quite fun.
It sounds fantastic. Anna, you
Oh,
are such a star. Thank
oh,
you
bless
for
you.
taking
Thank you
time.
so much.
It's
Not at
been
all.
great to chat with you and hear more about the process and everything. And we're just wishing you all the best for your continued
Thank you
success.
so much.
Come
And
back
I'm
to the
so glad
States.
you like the album as well.
Love it. Truly
Oh,
love it. Looking forward to playing it for our listeners on WRTI.